us. Before we begin, I would ask, please, that you turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate, silent. Thank you. I'd like to introduce the Premier of Bermuda, the Honorable David Burke, and our Minister of Finance, the Honorable Curtis L. Dickinson. Welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the media. Good afternoon, members of our local industry here in Bermuda. Thank you for coming. As I indicated in a statement earlier today, the news from Brussels this morning is a setback for Bermuda. It is disappointing that after endless hours of crafting a regime that would meet the required tests, and in fact, having now in force, has not been enough to prevent our addition to the EU's list of non-cooperative tax jurisdictions. Bermuda is compliant, and we are confident that within a matter of weeks, that will be accepted by EU member states, and Bermuda will be removed from this list. This confidence is shared by the United Kingdom government, who through the Treasury specifically stated, and I quote, that Bermuda has legislated to address the issue identified. In light of this, we expect Bermuda and other compliant jurisdictions to be removed from the list at the next available opportunity, end quote. Today's developments are not where we want to be, and certainly not where we intended to be when we embarked on this process. In various public statements, I've referred to external threats to our jurisdiction, and this is one of those threats that we must address. The various stakeholder groups represented here today demonstrate a Bermuda show of strength and determination to preserve a jurisdictional reputation earned over several decades. Working together, we will preserve investor and business confidence and continue to demonstrate that Bermuda has met the standard which is required by the European Union. I wish to assure the people of Bermuda that we do not anticipate any sanctions to be levied against us, and this will in no way affect how we travel or otherwise interact with the European Union. Let me also state that we'll be pressing Bermuda's case, emphasizing that fairness must be the order of the day. Our industry partners have commented on the paradox of our regulations being stricter than some of those countries that have not been listed. I believe that between now and May, a fair assessment of Bermuda's legislation will confirm our compliance, and we will be removed from this list. The Minister of Finance will now address some of the stakeholder engagement and the more technical issues that surround today's decision. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Premier. Good afternoon. Earlier today, the European Union Committee of Finance Ministers, known as the Economic and Financial Affairs Council, or ECOFIN, placed Bermuda on its list of non-cooperative jurisdictions for tax purposes. I would like to provide an update as to developments that have arisen as a result of this decision, as well as I will provide details on our compliance measures preceding this decision. We are currently consulting with the UK government, given they are a member of ECOFIN and are also members of all the technical support committees that make recommendations to ECOFIN. Her Majesty's Treasury had this morning advised us that the UK will submit its minutes of the ECOFIN meeting to articulate the UK's view that Bermuda's last submission to the Commission on the 4th of March 2019 satisfies the one remaining issue that has been identified. The UK's communique makes clear their expectation that Bermuda should be delisted at the next ECOFIN in May, as there is no April ECOFIN. Additionally, the UK has published an online note this morning stating, and I quote, "The UK agreement to the Council's conclusions on the revised EU list of non-cooperative jurisdictions for tax purposes is on the basis that, as set out in the conclusions, jurisdictions should be removed as soon as possible after they have demonstrated they are compliant." The UK notes that Bermuda has legislated to address the issue identified. In light of this, we expect Bermuda and other non-compliant jurisdictions, to be removed from the list at the next available opportunity, end quote. I wish to emphasize that Bermuda is a cooperative jurisdiction with the EU for tax purposes. In the spirit of continued cooperation that has been a hallmark of and underpinned Bermuda's international tax cooperation framework over many years, the government has recently legislated to address all technical requirements. As it stands today, Bermuda has addressed all issues identified and is now fully compliant. Some may ask, if we are compliant, then why are we on the EU's list that was released today? I will do my best to explain. In Bermuda's amending submission to the EU Commission dated February 22, 2019, we attached the revised economic substance regulations, which amended Regulation 16. This was done to address a Commission concern from the January 30th, 2019 Code of Conduct Group meeting. This submission to the Code of Conduct Group was made in good time prior to the February 24th, 2019 cutoff date. There was a technical omission which was flagged, and as a result, we proactively sent a March 4th, 2019 revision to address any possible lingering concern, and it was circulated by the Commission to the EU member states in good time prior to the member state tax invoice meeting of March 8th, 2019. Some press reports claim that the member state tax envoys meeting of March 8th, 2019 did not fully consider Bermuda's March 4th, 2019 revision when making their recommendation for today's meeting. If at the end of this process on economic substance, a minor technical omission in regulations was addressed too late for it to be considered to Bermuda's benefit, although it satisfied the one remaining stated concern of the Commission that arose at the Code of Conduct Group meeting on February 27, 2019, it is very disappointing given the ECOFIN meeting was on the 12th of March and our amending submission was made on the 4th of March that we find ourselves here today. Nonetheless, as I stated earlier, the UK in its public statements of today has indicated from its vantage point as a member of all of these EU meetings that Bermuda's 4th of March 2019 amending submission proactively fixed the one remaining provision, and we fully expect to be removed from the list on or before the next ECOFIN meeting. Additionally, Bermuda officials will visit the key EU ministers in Brussels, Paris, and Berlin to reinforce Bermuda's position. We are working closely with our industry stakeholders, and we will continue to be a jurisdiction of choice despite today's setback. As the Premier indicated, the last few months have been a trying time, and I want to thank all the stakeholders from industry who have assisted the Ministry of Finance during this process with their time and ideas. It is not lost on any of us that Bermuda's substance regulations are regarded as the strictest, yet we find ourselves alone on this list. I met with many of the stakeholders and the leaders of the opposition to apprise them of the possibility of today's result. My message yesterday and today are the same. We must be united to work to ensure that Bermuda is removed from the list, and I am confident that this unwarranted inclusion will be reversed at the earliest opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes.
Right.
Premier, did Bermuda play games as the EU reporting state?
The answer to that question, Tarai, is no. And I believe the Minister of Finance has clearly laid out the circumstances which surrounded that particular technical omission, which was rectified in good time.
You say the UK is sympathetic and supportive of Bermuda, but we read in Reuters that they have lifted their objection to the EU, but they lobbied hard for Saudi Arabia. You felt they could have done more to have prevented us from getting on this list?
Tarai, I think that you may be confusing two particular lists when you're talking about the EU's list that was dealing with anti-money laundering versus the European Union's list that was dealing with tax matters. But from the perspective of this, I think that it's important, and it's an important distinction for everyone to note, that this is not a blanket listing for all items that deal with the European Union. This is just one specific matter dealing with tax. There are numerous provisions for which countries are judged, and from the provision of Bermuda, we are now fully compliant. There was one outstanding provision which was addressed in our amended submission, And we are confident, as is confirmed by the United Kingdom, that that is enough to make sure that Bermuda is regarded as fully compliant.
Emma Farge, I'm representing Reuters. I was wondering if you could kindly give an account of what Renee Webb has been doing in the Brussels office to date. And also, can you comment on whether Bermuda is concerned about the Brexit giving Bermuda less clout in the future when it comes to negotiating in Brussels?
I'm happy to take that. I've been in constant contact and communication with Ms. Webb. We were speaking last night and throughout the week and also this morning, and she will be coordinating the meetings which we need to be having going forward. Regarding the second part of your question is whether or not the United Kingdom will have less clout. Certainly, if they're not inside the meetings, that will be the case. However, what I have to state is that the relationships of which we've had with the European Union over the years is a relationship that we intend to build on. This is a setback. It is a unfortunate circumstance due to a minor technical omission, but we will get past this, and we're confident that we'll be able to continue to work with the European Union as is one of our major trading partners and is vital to our domestic industries in financial services.
You're talking about the technical omission. I wonder how come we got to the point where we were so close to the deadline before that was corrected? What would lead up to that?
This process has been what I would consider most interesting. I think we, at the end of the day, were in constant, regular contact with technical officials in the European Union, and we were working through the issues. There was a slight typographical error, an omission that was not picked up by our respective teams, and our submission was incomplete in as much as one provision was not included. Once we realized we had an issue, we rectified it immediately and got our submission in enough time for it to be properly considered by ECOFIN.
Scott, but to deal with the particular question as well, I think that it's important to recognize that there's been multiple iterations. So, for instance, there were submissions that were done in December that were done by the team. There was a meeting of the Code of Conduct Group on January 30th. They went back to a number of states to ask for additional changes that were made. And so those are why those additional changes were made after that date. There was an extension in time of which was given, and a deadline of that was given to submit these items. All member states, all third countries, or many third countries were given additional provisions, and those provisions were put into place.
May I ask one more? Obviously, your hope is that we are removed from the blacklist as soon as possible. Can you talk us through the steps of what happens next if that doesn't happen? Are there going to be sanctions, and what might they be, and what might the consequences be for our business in Bermuda?
We are not aware of any particular sanctions that will be levied on jurisdictions that have been put on the non-cooperative list. Our view is that we are working towards getting removed from the list. The intelligence that we have to date, and based on our submissions, we understand that we are compliant today.
How do you prepare for this possible scenario?
Absolutely. I mean, the indications were there, Scott, and so there's been constant intelligence and feedback from the period and point in time where we were notified of an issue from the February 27th Code of Conduct Group. We've been making high-level interventions looking to avert this particular possibility, but we've also been making sure that our industry partners were aware of the possibility of this will happen. And I think that is recognized from the minister's statement of which he had stated and indicated that we've been in contact with our industry partners, and we had a meeting yesterday which also included the leader of the opposition. The fact is that there can be many points in times of disappointment, but right now what we have to do is unite to make sure that we are going to remove from this list. We have done everything that is required, but there's particular points of frustration. There's particular things that were denied to Bermuda that were allowed for other jurisdictions. There are specific definitions, and that's why when the minister and myself say our industry partners are slightly bewildered, that our economic substance regime is viewed independently as the most strict and stringent that exists, but yet out of the Crown dependencies and overseas territories, we find ourselves the only one of that number on the list. It is unfortunate. However, we are right now compliant, and we will make sure that that come May, that is recognized officially through the European Council.
Will you be rewriting the Economic Substance Act now that you've seen what has been allowed and we have something slightly different? Is that a possibility?
We will take an opportunity to review the legislation and regulations of all the other jurisdictions who have not been included on the list as part of just a regular way of doing business. And then as much as there are opportunities for us to kind of enhance ours, we will consider them carefully.
It appears to me that perhaps one of the differences between Bermuda and the other jurisdictions in the minds of the EU decision makers might be the Google headlines, which I think were disastrous for us. Is there anything we can do about that particular point? Would you consider banning Google, for example, whilst you work on the EU getting compliance with the getting off the blacklist? Might that be an option?
I'll respond, and if the Premier wants to add, he certainly can. We would like to encourage Google, if they're part of an issue, to help us through this by establishing a more substantive presence in Bermuda. We think that works both for ourselves and for Google.
And what's the danger that some of these other jurisdictions who are competitors to us now have a better say for attracting businesses and keeping businesses, for the next 2 months possibly? Do you think that we may miss out?
I think the purpose of today's press conference is to reinforce that we are compliant today. And in light of that fact, we think that businesses should consider staying here, should stay here.
And the working group, I mean, I take it you've had something like a working group going through this process. What's been the feedback from them, particularly since this decision was made?
Well, they've only heard the decision this morning, but I can tell you, because I've shared it with them, that it has been a bit frustrating, but it is a process that we have to get ourselves through. We now have a decision. We now know where we are with respect to kind of our own compliance. We now need to do some work between now and May to kind of get the official stamp that we are fine. We'll keep moving forward and working together.
And reputational damage, I'm just wondering about if there might be anything that might linger in the fact that we've actually been placed onto such a list. And also, we're a sophisticated jurisdiction and we missed this deadline somehow. What can we do to correct that?
There will be an opportunity for me and my team to have a look back at all the things that we did over the course of the last several months with respect to this process and identify ways of improving the process to make sure that we don't have a repeat of this.
The one thing I would say, Scott, is that I don't accept the premise that we missed the deadline. The fact is that this has been an evolving target, which has been going through. Our submission was made prior to the deadline. When there was a minor technical omission that was flagged to us, we made sure that was resolved in good time. And your question of reputational damage is noted, but the fact is that Bermuda has a long reputation, and I'm not trying to minimize this, but this is the European Union. There are many other international organizations which judge tax transparency and compliance, and Bermuda has absolutely no issues with them.
Okay, right.
Thank you.
Thank you.